Hello, Mrs. Wilma. Thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hey Jackie, thank you for having me. I'm pleased to meet you too.
Mrs. Wilma, is it okay if I call you Mrs.?
Jackie's asking for permission here because Wilma was born in 1940 and Jackie was born in 1962, so they're 22 years apart.
Absolutely, sweetheart. I appreciate your kind manners.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilma. My mama would appreciate that compliment a lot. She raised me to respect those that came before me. I just wanted to let you know that I really am so humbled to meet you because you paved the way for girls like us.
Thank you, Jackie. That's really kind of you to say that. It was definitely a blessing and a curse to have been one of the first black women in track to pave the way. It was a blessing because now the new black girls in track don't have to deal with breaking the barriers and the backlash that came with it. But it was also a curse too because I didn't get that many opportunities handed to me during and after my career because of my color and because of my gender. It was very difficult getting sponsorships and endorsements because no one wanted a black face to represent their company.
That must have been very difficult, Mrs. Wilma. Forgive me if this question is too forward, but were you born during Jim Crow? I know it didn't end till about 1965, so I wanted to know what it was like.
Yes, I was. I was born in 1940, so that was right in the middle of Jim Crow. I had experiences with Jim Crow for the first 25 years of my life. When I was young, I was very sick and very ill. I had a disease called polio, and it was very new at the time, and it was also very common. There was no treatment for it. Oh no, there was treatment for it. There was no cure for it. So my mom and I, we had to travel all the way to Clarksville to get treatment because there was a doctor in my town who was black, but he didn't believe in me. And my mama was like, well, we ain't gonna see him no more. So then we ended up going to this white hospital, and they told us that we couldn't come. So that's why we ended up going to the Clarksville hospital, because no one in my hometown would treat black people.
Wow, Mrs. Wilma. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be refused or turned away from the hospital because of my skin color. I actually had a disease growing up too. I had asthma, but mine was exercise induced. I dealt with my asthma my whole life, and it's funny, Mrs. Wilma, because you and I both had diseases that are not really ideal for track athletes.
I know that's right. I remember when I was little, I always felt left out, and this made me feel really sad. I couldn't run or walk or play like the other kids, and they made fun of me a lot for that. But even though I didn't have as many friends to play with, I always had my brothers and sisters. I came from a very large family, so I had a lot of brothers and sisters to play with. They always made me feel special and loved.
That's interesting. I came from a big family too, and my siblings took care of one another. We had to help my mom out because there were a lot of us and we didn't have that much money growing up. East St. Louis was a rough area for everyone. There were drugs, guns, violence, and bad men everywhere. My mom always told me to stay out of the streets and just focus on school and sports. My mama had us young. She was only in high school. She didn't want us to live a hard life just like she did.
Well, your mother sounds like a good woman. She was very wise, and I'm pretty sure she just wanted what was best for y'all. I was a teenage mom in high school just like your mom, and I remember how hard of a decision it was to try to choose between my career and my baby. I had older siblings who were able to take care of my baby while I focused on track though.
My mama was definitely looking out for me and my siblings. If it weren't for her keeping me focused, I don't think I would have ever managed to get out of East St. Louis. Track changed my life, and it opened up so many doors for me that I would have never had if I never left East St. Louis.
What was your career like?
Well, I ended up going to 4 Olympics, and I walked away with 6 medals, 1 world record and 1 Olympic record.
That's so incredible, Jackie. Look at God. After all you've been through, and you still came out on top.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilma. Yes, indeed. The road wasn't easy, but he led me through all the obstacles. I know you had a very impressive career too, Mrs. Wilma.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, I went to 2 Olympics and I walked away with 4 medals. I was the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in 1 Olympic Games. And you know, they still gave me a hard time in America. Black people can never catch a break.
I agree with you, Mrs. Wilma. It's crazy because we are still fighting racism and discrimination today in 2020. There is no Jim Crow, but you still see the effects of it. Police brutality is on the rise, and there were many, many black folks that have lost their lives to it. People have been fed up and have been protesting and marching for equal rights.
Still, child, I pray to God that one day there will be a time on earth where no one's mistreated or discriminated against for the color of their skin. If I was living in 2020, I would do everything I can to bring a stop to this.
Yes, Mrs. Wilma. There's a movement going on right now, actually. It's called Black Lives Matter. And people have been coming together to dismantle systemic, institutionalized racism. I know that if you were living in 2020, you would be a huge supporter of this movement.
Oh yes, Jackie. I established a foundation called the Wilma Rudolph Foundation. It gave children opportunities in athletics that they would have never had otherwise because of their economic background and their color. I tried everything I could during my time to fight for my people. I'm really sad to hear that we're still fighting for equal rights, but I'm glad that the world is starting to open their eyes and their hearts.
I am definitely happy about that too, Mrs. Wilma. Like you said, one day there will be a time when we don't have to fight anymore. Thank you so much for your time today, Mrs. Wilma. You take care now.
All right, Jackie. Thank you. Be blessed.